The neighborhood looked peaceful from the outside. The grass was green, the houses were neat, and the streets were clean. Anyone driving through would think it was a quiet, friendly place. But people who lived there knew one thing very well: the peace was only on the surface. Behind that peaceful look was one person who made everyone nervous. Her name was Karen. Karen acted like she controlled everything. She was not the real HOA leader, but she walked around with a clipboard, a whistle, and a long chain of keys that she called her master keys. She told everyone she had the right to open anything: gates, mailboxes, houses, even cars. No one believed her, but no one wanted to fight with her either. People avoided her as much as possible. One day, a new neighbor moved into the house at the end of the street. His name was Daniel, but nobody knew much about him. He was quiet, calm, and very private. What the neighborhood did not know was that Daniel was not just any man. He was the county sheriff. But he didn't tell anyone. He wanted a few months of peaceful life away from loud emergencies and late-night calls. He thought this neighborhood would be a nice break. He had no idea about Karen. From his very first week, he noticed strange things. His neighbors whispered whenever Karen walked by. People closed their doors when she came near. Children stopped playing and went inside when she appeared with her whistle. Daniel thought it was strange, but he didn't want to get involved. Not yet. One early morning, Daniel made coffee and stepped outside to enjoy the cool air. The sun was still coming up, and the birds were just starting to sing. He leaned on his car and breathed in the quiet morning. Then he heard it. The sound of keys. A whole bunch of them. Clink. 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 The noise came from down the street. Daniel narrowed his eyes and saw a figure walking slowly toward the houses. It was Karen. She marched like a security guard on patrol. She had a bright red whistle around her neck, a big clipboard in her hand, and her heavy key ring hit her leg with every step. She stopped in front of every driveway, looked at every house, and wrote notes like she was doing a police report. Daniel watched quietly. New people always break the rules, she muttered loudly. I need to check everything. This neighborhood needs order. She talked to herself like she was giving speeches to an invisible audience. Then she said something that made Daniel lift his head. These master keys open everything in this neighborhood. People don't know how much responsibility I have. I must check all the houses and cars to keep everyone safe. Her voice was proud and loud, like she wanted the whole world to hear. Daniel frowned. Master keys? He knew that was impossible. No real HOA or security group would ever give such power to a random neighbor. Something felt very wrong. Karen stopped at the driveway next to Daniel's house. She looked at the car parked there and shook her head. This car is too dirty, she said to herself. Breaking HOA rules. I should open it and check what's inside. Daniel raised an eyebrow. She was about to break into someone's car at 6 a.m.? He took out his phone and quietly started recording. Karen walked to the next driveway. And the next. She tried random keys in mailboxes and gates, none of which opened, but she kept pretending like she was inspecting the area. Daniel stayed quiet, but he watched with interest. Most people would have yelled or stopped her. But Daniel wanted proof, clear evidence. He believed in being calm, patient, and smart. And something told him Karen was the kind of person who would talk herself into trouble if given enough time. Then it happened. Karen stopped walking. Slowly, she turned her head and looked straight at Daniel's car. His black SUV was new, shiny, and clean. It probably looked suspicious to her. Karen nodded to herself. Yes, this one is definitely a problem, she said. New neighbor. New car. I need to check this. For safety. She walked closer. Daniel kept recording. Karen stood right next to his car, leaned forward, and inspected it like she was a detective. She touched the windows, checked the tires, and even wiped a little dust from the hood with her finger. Then she looked at her huge ring of keys. No one ever listens to me, she said in an annoyed voice. But I must protect this neighborhood. If I think a car is suspicious, I have the right to check it. She picked one key. Then another. And then she pushed the first key into Daniel's car door. Metal scratched against metal. Daniel felt a sharp jolt of irritation, but he stayed calm. He had seen worse. Much worse. Karen tried a second key. The car made a small metallic click but did not open. She frowned and pulled out another key, bigger and older than the rest. This one should work, she said confidently. It didn't. She scratched the paint again. Daniel slowly walked forward, but he didn't speak yet. He wanted to see what she would do next. He wanted the full story recorded so no one could deny what happened later. Karen tried one more key, this one was long and rusty. She pushed it so hard that Daniel could actually hear it scrape inside the lock. That was enough. He took one step closer. Excuse me, he said calmly. Karen froze. She turned slowly, her eyes wide like someone caught stealing cookies. Yes, she said, trying to stand tall. Daniel pointed at his car door. What are you doing? Karen lifted her chin. I am doing my job, she said confidently. I am the HOA leader. I have the authority to check any car I want. This car might not follow neighborhood rules. I must make sure. Daniel remained quiet. He wanted her to talk more. Also, she continued, you're new here. New people always break rules. We must keep this area safe. Daniel stared at her for a moment. He could see her hands shaking slightly. She wasn't scared, she was angry. Angry that someone questioned her imaginary power. He spoke in a calm voice. Do you have permission to open my car? Karen gasped loudly as if he had insulted her. Permission? I am the permission. I don't need to ask anyone. I have these master keys and a responsibility to protect this neighborhood. She held up her key ring like it was a trophy. Daniel slowly reached into his pocket and checked his phone, still recording. Karen didn't notice. She just kept talking. You should be thanking me, she said. I am saving you. I am checking your car for anything dangerous. Outsiders bring crime. Daniel almost smiled. If only she knew who he really was. Karen stepped closer to him. You need to go back inside, she ordered. I need to finish my inspection. You cannot stand here and interrupt my HOA duty. Daniel raised an eyebrow. This is your duty? Yes, she snapped. If you don't follow HOA rules, I can call the police. Daniel folded his arms. He finally spoke with a calm, steady tone. Is that so? Karen nodded sharply. Yes. And trust me, they will listen to me. I have authority. Daniel looked at his scratched car door, then at her shaking hands holding the key ring. This woman had no idea what she was doing. No idea who she was threatening. And no idea what was about to happen next. He pressed the stop button on his recording, put his phone in his pocket, and prepared himself. The morning was quiet. But the storm was just beginning. Karen stood in front of Daniel like she was a queen and he was just a visitor. Her shoulders were stiff, her chin was high, and she held her huge ring of keys like a weapon of authority. Daniel kept his calm expression. He had seen criminals with knives, angry people with guns, and scared drivers in emergencies. But a woman with a fake title and a bag full of random keys? This was new, and somehow entertaining. Karen noticed he wasn't afraid of her. That made her even more irritated. Listen carefully, she said, pointing her finger at him like a school teacher. In this neighborhood, I make the rules. I decide what is allowed and what is not allowed. And your car, yes, your car, does not follow the rules. Daniel raised his eyebrows. My car? Yes, she answered loudly. Too loudly for the quiet morning. It is too shiny. It attracts attention. It is not the right color for our community. It looks like an outsider car. Daniel stared at her for a moment, wondering if she even believed her own words. Karen took a deep breath and continued speaking like she was giving a speech to a big crowd. Cars must match the environment. I have it written on my HOA list. She tapped her clipboard dramatically. Daniel leaned slightly to the side and tried to read the paper on the clipboard. It wasn't an HOA document. It was a grocery list. Eggs. Milk. Bread. Laundry detergent. Punish rule breakers. Daniel almost smiled. Karen noticed him looking. She quickly turned the clipboard away and hugged it to her chest. You don't need to see official HOA business, she said sharply. Daniel calmly replied, official business? Karen's face twitched. Yes. Everything I do is official. You must understand that. I work very hard to protect this community. People trust me. As she said this, two neighbors walked by with their dogs. They saw Karen and instantly crossed the street to avoid her. Karen didn't notice. Daniel did. Karen walked around his car again, circling it like a shark around its prey. She took out a small flashlight from her pocket even though the sun was already shining. She crouched down near the tires. She checked the mirrors. She even tried to look under the car for something illegal. Daniel watched her with a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Then she stopped, stood up straight, and placed both hands on her hips. This car, she declared with confidence, is suspicious. Daniel sighed. Suspicious how? Karen took a dramatic breath, opened her mouth wide, and then spoke slowly, as if she were giving him the most important news in the world. It is parked perfectly. Daniel blinked. Perfectly? Yes. Karen shouted. People who follow rules never park perfectly. This is too perfect. Too straight. Too exact. It looks like you practiced parking. That means you are hiding something. Daniel couldn't help it, he laughed. Not loudly, not rudely, just a small amused laugh he couldn't stop. Karen gasped as if he had slapped her. Are you laughing at me? Daniel stopped smiling but didn't lose his calm. No. I'm just trying to understand your logic. Karen stepped closer. You don't need to understand my logic. You just need to respect it. Daniel took a slow breath, calm as ever. Respect works both ways, he said. Karen scoffed. Not in an HOA. The HOA has power. And I am the HOA. Daniel gave a small nod. I see. Karen smiled proudly, misunderstanding his tone. Yes. Good. Now you understand your place. Then she pointed a finger inches from his face. Now, you need to follow the rules. First, move your car. Second, show me your ID. Third, sign this form. She shoved a paper toward him. Daniel took the paper from her hand, looked at it, and blinked. It wasn't a form. It was the back of a fast food receipt with scribbles on it. At the top, in large messy letters, she had written, Neighbor Rule Agreement. Under it, she listed 3 things. Always obey me. Keep your car dull and boring. Don't talk back. Daniel silently folded the paper and handed it back. Karen snatched it, misunderstanding again. Good, she said. I knew you would understand. Then, without warning, she raised her key ring again. Well, I'm not done. I still need to check the inside of your car. It's part of my inspection. And you cannot say no. Daniel tilted his head. And why is that? Karen smiled a big, fake, confident smile. Because I said so. She tried another key in his car door. The key didn't fit. Instead, it left another deep scratch near the lock. Daniel stepped forward. That's enough, he said softly, but firmly. Karen froze. Something in his voice made her take one step back. Not fear, but surprise. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. But his tone had changed, like a steel door closing. She didn't like it. Karen's face darkened. Are you threatening me? No, Daniel said calmly. I'm asking you to stop scratching my car. Karen threw her arms up dramatically. Excuse me? I am doing official HOA work. You cannot talk to me like that. You are violating rule number. She flipped her grocery list around, pretending it was a legal document. Rule number 12. Yes. 12. Daniel quietly replied, there are no rules on that paper. Karen's face went red. I am the rule, she shouted. And if you try to stop me, I will call the police. Daniel folded his arms. Call them. Karen blinked. She didn't expect that answer. Don't test me, she warned. I'm not, Daniel said. Call them. Karen sniffed loudly, then pulled out her phone like a sword. Oh, I will, she said dramatically. I know the police. They know me. They trust me. When I tell them someone is dangerous, they come right away. I'm very important. Daniel looked at her, steady and silent. Karen dialed 911. Daniel didn't interrupt. He just watched. Karen spoke loudly, with fake fear shaking her voice. Hello? Yes. I need help. There is a man here. A dangerous man. He is threatening me. He is attacking me. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, amazed at how easily she lied. He is trying to steal a car, she continued. Yes, my car. No, his car. No, the car. He is dangerous. Daniel quietly whispered, unbelievable. Karen went on, making the story bigger with every breath. When the call ended, she turned to him with a proud look. They're coming, she said. And when they get here, you will learn what happens to rule breakers. Daniel didn't respond. He simply watched her, expression unreadable. She had no idea what she had just done. No idea who she was talking to. No idea how big of a mistake she had made. The police were coming. And Karen was about to receive the biggest surprise of her life. Karen ended her 911 call with a dramatic sigh, like she had just saved the whole world. She slid her phone back into her pocket and gave Daniel a cold smile, the kind of smile villains give in movies when they think they have already won. Daniel didn't move. He stood with calm eyes, arms crossed, breathing slow and steady. He looked like a man waiting for his breakfast to finish cooking, not someone who had just been falsely reported to the police. Karen hated that. She expected him to panic, or argue, or run. But he just stood there, completely relaxed. Karen took this as disrespect. You think I'm joking? She snapped. Police are coming. They will arrest you. They always listen to me. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he looked around the neighborhood. A few curtains moved. Some neighbors peeked out through small window cracks. They knew something dramatic was happening, the kind of drama Karen created often. But this time felt different. This time, a new player was involved and nobody knew who he really was. Karen noticed those curtains too. And she loved the attention. She raised her voice even louder so everyone inside their homes could hear her. You should have followed the rules, she shouted. This is my neighborhood. Daniel looked at her calmly. You don't own this neighborhood. Karen gasped loudly. Yes, I do, she yelled. People depend on me. People trust me. I stop crime, I enforce rules, and I keep dangerous people like you away. Daniel tilted his head. Dangerous? Karen took a dramatic step back. Yes. You approached me aggressively. Daniel gave her a confused look. I didn't move. Karen threw her arms up. Exactly. That still counts. You stood there with those eyes. Daniel blinked slowly. Eyes? Yes, she said, nodding fast. Your eyes are suspicious. Daniel almost laughed again, but he didn't want to give her more fuel. She continued, loud and confident. You walked out of your house without telling me. You parked your car too neatly. You questioned my authority. All of that is threatening behavior. Daniel said nothing. He simply watched her unravel. Karen mistook his silence for fear. She smirked. That's right. You should be scared. When the police arrive, they will know I am the HOA leader. Daniel finally spoke. You keep saying HOA leader, but I've been here a week. I haven't received any letter, email, or notice about you. Karen scoffed, waving her grocery list clipboard. I don't send notices. People must just know. They must feel my authority. Daniel raised an eyebrow. People must feel it? Yes, she snapped. It's a natural thing. I was born to lead. I have a leadership spirit. Daniel nodded slowly. I see. Karen smiled proudly again, misunderstanding the tone completely. Good. Now that we agree I'm in charge, here are the rules you must follow before the police get here. She held up her grocery list like it was the constitution of the entire country. Rule number 1, she said, tapping the paper with her finger, you must move your car into your garage. I don't like seeing it. Daniel shook his head. The garage is full of boxes. I just moved in. Karen waved her hand. I don't care. Put them somewhere. Throw them away. I need your car out of sight. Daniel asked quietly, why? Because it makes the street look too perfect, she shouted. It makes the other cars look bad. People will think they need to wash their cars more. Daniel blinked. That sounds like a good thing. No, she barked. It creates pressure. And pressure creates rebellion. Daniel sighed inside his mind. He had handled dangerous criminals who made more sense than this woman. But Karen wasn't finished. She pointed directly at his chest. Rule number 2, she said sharply, you are not allowed to speak to me unless I speak to you first. Daniel raised an eyebrow again. That's not how life works. That's how HOA works, Karen replied proudly. Daniel answered softly, you are not the HOA. Karen stiffened. Her face went red like a tomato that had been left in the sun. She whispered in a threatening tone. I am the HOA. Then she snapped back to shouting. And rule number 3, you must let me finish inspecting your car. Daniel stepped forward. No. It was quiet, simple, and final. Karen was stunned. No, she repeated, like she had never heard the word before. No? You just said no to me? Daniel nodded. Karen's expression changed quickly. First confusion. Then anger. Then fury. You can't say no, she yelled. I am authorized to search anything in this neighborhood. Daniel stayed silent. Karen pointed her keys at him like a sword. If you stop me from opening your car, it means you are hiding something, she said. Daniel sighed. I am hiding something. Karen froze. For the first time, she looked nervous. What are you hiding? She whispered. Daniel said calmly. My patience. Karen's mouth dropped open. Before she could explode again, she heard a sound in the distance. A faint echo. A familiar sound. Police sirens. Karen's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Yes. They're coming, she shouted. You're in so much trouble now. Inside their homes, neighbors whispered. Some took out their phones, recording from behind curtains. They knew this would be good. Karen started pacing in circles, practicing the lies she would tell the officers. I'll say he tried to grab me. No. I'll say he threatened me first. Maybe I should pretend to cry. Yes. Crying always works. Daniel stared at her quietly. Karen suddenly stopped and looked at him. You better look scared when they arrive, she said. If you look confident, they might think you're guilty and attack you. Daniel calmly replied. I'll take my chances. Karen leaned forward and whispered like a villain in a cartoon. I will tell them you attacked me. Daniel didn't even blink. She stepped even closer. Do you hear me? I will make sure they believe me. I am very convincing. Daniel nodded slowly. I'm sure you are. Karen mistook this as fear and smirked again. Good, she said. I always win. The sirens grew louder. Karen fixed her hair. Wiped imaginary tears from her eyes. Practiced a sad face. Daniel put his hands behind his back, relaxed, waiting. Karen whispered to herself. They always take my side. Always. She didn't know. This day would be the last time that ever happened. Police cars turned onto the street. Lights flashed. Neighbors watched. Karen's entire body filled with excitement. She took a deep breath. And prepared to give the performance of her life. The police sirens grew louder, echoing through the neat and quiet neighborhood. Red and blue lights danced across the houses, bouncing off windows like an unwanted morning alarm. Karen stood proudly at the end of Daniel's driveway, chest lifted, shoulders straight, face dramatic. Like a stage actress waiting for her spotlight. Daniel stood a few steps away, hands calmly behind his back, watching everything with silent eyes. He looked like a man who knew exactly what would happen. Because he did. Karen, however, had absolutely no idea. 2 police cars turned the corner and stopped in front of Daniel's house. Engines hummed, lights flashed, doors opened. Karen straightened her hair in a rush and instantly put on her victim face, big sad eyes, trembling lips, fake fear written all over. Oh, thank goodness, she cried loudly, running toward the officers as if she had survived a tornado. Officers. Officers. You came just in time. The 2 officers, Officer Lopez and Officer Grant, stepped out calmly. They were experienced, older, and the type who had dealt with more dramatic people than they could count. But even they looked confused when they saw Karen running at them like an actress in a slow-motion movie scene. Officer Lopez raised a hand. Ma'am, slow down. What happened? Karen gasped loudly, placing a hand dramatically on her chest. Oh, officers, it was horrible. Just horrible. She squeezed out a tiny fake tear. I was threatened. Daniel watched from a distance. He knew this was the moment Karen had been waiting for. Karen grabbed Officer Lopez's arm. He was angry. Dangerous. Violent, she said, pointing at Daniel without even looking. He tried to attack me. Daniel blinked. He had literally not moved since she called 911. Officer Grant looked at Daniel. He wasn't running. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't even frowning. He looked like a man waiting in line at a grocery store. Threatened you how? Officer Grant asked. Karen instantly raised her voice. He yelled at me. He scared me. He told me he would hurt me if I didn't open his car. Daniel quietly whispered, my car? Karen pretended not to hear him. Officer Lopez asked calmly. And why were you trying to open his car? Karen straightened her back, proud and confident. Because I am the HOA leader. I have the right to open anything I want. Both officers froze. They looked at each other. Then at Karen. Then at the giant ring of random old keys in her hand. None of the keys matched. Half were rusty. One looked like it belonged to a diary from the 1990s. Officer Lopez gently asked. Do you have proof that you're the HOA leader? Karen gasped like he had insulted her honor. How dare you? Everyone knows I am the HOA leader. A dog barked in the distance. A curtain moved. Someone inside laughed quietly. But Karen didn't notice. Officer Grant took a calm breath. "Ma'am, we've responded to calls in this neighborhood before. We've never heard about you being the HOA leader." Karen put her hands on her hips. "Well, maybe I didn't inform you, officer, but everyone else knows." Officer Lopez asked. "Who gave you the authority to open cars?" Karen held up her grocery list clipboard with pride. "This document." The officers took one look at it. Eggs. Milk. Laundry detergent. Punish rule breakers. Ban shiny cars. Officer Lopez cleared his throat, trying not to laugh. "Ma'am, this is a grocery list." Karen snatched it away. "It is official HOA business." Daniel finally stepped forward. Karen saw him move and instantly shrieked. "There! He's coming toward me. He's dangerous. Arrest him before he runs." Officer Grant raised a calming hand. "Ma'am, please step aside." But Karen didn't step aside. She stepped even closer to the officers, whispering urgently. "Listen, you must arrest him. He is new here. New people are always trouble. I was trying to protect the neighborhood." "By opening his car?" Officer Lopez asked. Karen nodded quickly. "Yes. I was making sure he wasn't doing anything illegal inside it." Daniel spoke calmly. "My car was locked." Karen snapped, "So what?" "Locked cars can still be illegal." The officers' faces tightened. They looked tired. Officer Grant asked Daniel. "Sir, did you threaten her?" Daniel answered quietly. "No." Karen gasped dramatically. "He's lying." The officers ignored her for a second. Officer Lopez asked. "Sir, did you record what happened?" Daniel nodded and pulled out his phone. Before he could hit play, Karen screamed. "Stop. Don't listen to him. He changed the video. He edited it." Daniel didn't respond. He simply played the video. The officers watched. Karen trying random keys in his car. Karen scratching the paint. Karen saying she had master keys. Karen yelling about being born to lead. Karen threatening to call the police. Karen lying about being the HOA leader. Karen shouting that Daniel was dangerous while he stood still. The video ended. Silence. A long, heavy, uncomfortable silence. Neighbor curtains opened wider now. People leaned closer to watch. Everyone knew this was going to be good. Karen's face went from red to purple to pale. Officer Grant took a slow breath. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "everything you said on the phone was false." Karen opened her mouth but nothing came out. Officer Lopez added. "You told 911 that he attacked you." Karen pointed at Daniel with a shaking hand. "He did. He threatened me with his eyes." Officer Grant sighed. "Ma'am, you can't file false police reports." Karen snapped back into her dramatic voice. "Well, maybe the video is wrong. Maybe I was hypnotized." "Yes. Hypnotized. He hypnotized me with his perfect car." The officers stared at her. Even Daniel blinked at the level of creativity. Officer Lopez said calmly, "Ma'am, you are not the HOA leader. You are not allowed to open cars. And you cannot lie to police." Karen's eyes filled with panic now. Real panic. No, you don't understand. I was protecting the neighborhood. I always protect this neighborhood." Officer Grant spoke firmly. "Ma'am, step away from the gentleman." Karen didn't move. She froze like a statue. Officer Lopez repeated. "Ma'am. Step away." Karen stepped back slowly, like someone taking steps away from a cliff. Her voice shook. Are you arresting him? Officer Grant looked at her. Hesitation. Then seriousness. No, ma'am, he said. We're not arresting him. Karen swallowed hard. Then who? Officer Lopez stepped toward her. You. Karen gasped so loudly the neighborhood birds flew away. Me? Officer Grant nodded once. You filed a false report. You attempted to enter someone's car without permission. That is a crime. Karen stepped back further. No. You cannot arrest the HOA leader. Ma'am, Officer Lopez said softly, you are not the HOA leader. Karen shook her head fast. No. Everyone knows me. I make the rules. A neighbor across the street opened his window and yelled. No, we don't. Another neighbor shouted. You're not the HOA. You're just loud. Karen looked around in shock. The neighborhood, the place she believed she ruled over, was no longer behind her. No one supported her. No one defended her. No one believed her story. The officers stepped closer. Daniel stood quietly behind them, watching. Karen's hands shook. Her fake confidence cracked like thin ice under heavy steps. No, wait, please. I didn't mean. I just wanted to help. Her voice broke. Officer Grant sighed. Ma'am, turn around. Karen turned slowly, like she was walking in a nightmare. Daniel watched as the officers prepared to take her into custody. And Karen finally realized. Her biggest performance had officially ended. But the real consequences were just beginning. The neighborhood was silent, but the air felt heavy, like everyone could sense something big was coming. Birds had stopped chirping. Even the wind felt still. Karen stood in the middle of the street with her arms crossed, breathing hard after her dramatic 911 call. She kept pacing in small circles, whispering to herself about dangerous outsiders and ungrateful new neighbors. The sheriff, still calm, leaned against his car. His arms were folded, and he watched her quietly. He didn't rush. He didn't argue. He simply waited. He knew what was coming, and he was prepared. Karen, however, was not prepared at all. She kept glancing at the road, waiting for the police. Every time she heard a distant engine, she gasped loudly like she was starring in a movie. She wanted an audience. She wanted everyone to see her heroic moment. Finally, after a few minutes, a patrol car turned the corner. Karen's eyes lit up. There! They're coming! Finally, she said loudly, as if she had summoned them with magic. The sheriff straightened up but didn't move from his spot. His face stayed calm, unreadable. He wanted to see how far Karen would take her lies. The patrol car slowed, and two officers stepped out. Their uniforms looked crisp, and their expressions were serious. They checked the address, then looked at Karen, who was waving both hands in the air like she was signaling an airplane to land. Officers! Over here! Hurry, she shouted, running toward them dramatically. The officers exchanged a small look, just a tiny one, wondering why this woman was acting like she was in danger when she was clearly fine. When they reached her, she instantly grabbed one of their arms. Oh, thank goodness you're here. I was terrified. He tried to attack me, she cried, pointing back at the sheriff. The officers looked toward him. He wasn't moving. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't even walking toward them. He was just standing there beside his car, hands visible, body relaxed. One officer asked Karen, "Ma'am, are you hurt?" Karen blinked. She hadn't thought this far. No. But I could have been. He's dangerous. How exactly is he dangerous? The officer asked. Karen froze for a second. Then she quickly came up with a new lie. He tried to open my car earlier. And when I confronted him, he threatened me. I had to protect the neighborhood. I am the HOA leader, you know. The two officers were trying to be professional, but even they looked confused. The sheriff stayed silent, giving Karen more rope to hang her lies with. Now, Karen puffed her chest and spoke louder, hoping neighbors were watching. He is not allowed to park here. He broke HOA rules. And when I told him, he got angry. I have the authority to check vehicles. I have the master keys. One officer frowned. Master keys? Ma'am. HOA doesn't give master keys for cars. Karen's eyes widened, and she stuttered, "Well, they gave me one. Because I am special. I am the neighborhood coordinator." The officers clearly didn't buy it. Still, they walked toward the sheriff, because that was their procedure. Karen followed behind them like a queen walking with her guards. When they reached the sheriff, one officer spoke politely. "Sir, we received a call about a disturbance. May we speak with you?" The sheriff nodded. "Of course. I've been waiting." Karen interrupted loudly before the sheriff could continue. "Arrest him. He is breaking into cars and threatening HOA." The sheriff looked at her slowly. Not angry. Not worried. Just calm, almost amused. "Ma'am," the officer said firmly, "please let us handle the conversation." Karen stepped back but kept making dramatic gasps, like she was still performing for an invisible crowd. The officer turned back to the sheriff. "Sir, can you tell us your side?" The sheriff nodded again, calm as ever. Before he spoke, he reached into his pocket slowly, keeping the movement clear so the officers wouldn't worry. Karen jumped back 2 steps. "He's grabbing something." "Be careful," she shouted. But the officers already knew he wasn't a threat. They placed a hand near their holsters, ready but not tense. The sheriff pulled out his phone first. He tapped on the screen and showed them something. It was the full video recording. Karen trying to use keys on his car. Karen scratching the paint. Karen yelling at him. Karen claiming she had authority. Karen threatening him. Karen calling 911 and lying. The officers watched the video quietly. Karen didn't realize what was happening. She kept talking behind them. "Make sure you check the back of his car. He probably stole something. And look at the way he stands, he looks guilty. One officer finally turned around. "Ma'am, please be quiet for a moment." Karen's jaw dropped open. For the first time, she sensed something was very wrong. The officers handed the sheriff's phone back to him respectfully. Then something changed in their expression. One officer's posture straightened. The other one nodded at the sheriff, like he recognized him. But Karen didn't notice. She was too busy preparing her next lie. The first officer cleared his throat. "Sir, should we continue with protocol?" The sheriff smiled. Karen's eyebrows shot up. She looked at the sheriff, then at the officers, then back at the sheriff. What protocol? Why are you asking him?" she demanded. The sheriff unfolded his arms and finally spoke, slow, controlled, with confidence. "Because, ma'am, you didn't call the police on a random man." Karen blinked fast. "You called the police on the county sheriff." Both officers stepped back respectfully. Karen's mouth dropped so wide it was almost cartoonish. She stared at the sheriff like she had seen a ghost. No. That can't be, you can't be. I mean." She pointed her finger shakily. "You didn't tell me." The sheriff raised one eyebrow. "Neither did you." Karen stumbled backward, suddenly speechless for the first time in her life. The officers stood silently, waiting for the sheriff's lead. And the entire street felt like it was holding its breath. Something huge was about to happen. And Karen finally realized she was no longer in control. For a long moment, nobody moved. Karen stood frozen in the street, her hand covering her mouth, her eyes wide with shock. It was like her brain had suddenly stopped working. She kept staring at the sheriff as if she was hoping he would laugh and say it was all a joke. But the sheriff did not smile. He calmly slipped his badge out of his wallet and held it up. The silver badge glowed in the sunlight. The officers nodded with respect. Karen's knees almost buckled. This can't be real," she whispered. The sheriff finally stepped forward. His voice stayed calm but carried a powerful weight. "Ma'am, you tried to break into my car. You scratched the paint. You threatened me. And you reported a false emergency." Karen shook her head quickly. No, wait. You don't understand. I didn't know you were the sheriff." The sheriff looked at her with steady eyes. "You don't get to break the law depending on who someone is." Karen swallowed hard, panic rising. But I was only trying to protect the neighborhood. I was doing my duty." One of the officers gently stepped forward. "Ma'am, your duty does not include entering vehicles that don't belong to you." Karen began breathing faster. She turned her eyes to the officers and whispered, "I didn't mean any harm. I was just checking people, for safety." The sheriff crossed his arms. "You tried 8 different keys on my car, ma'am." His tone was calm, but each word struck her like a hammer. Karen's face turned red. Sweat appeared on her forehead. She looked like a kid caught stealing cookies from the jar, but this time the consequences were much bigger. "Sir, I just thought," she stuttered. The sheriff interrupted gently but firmly. "You thought you could control the neighborhood by scaring people." Karen's lips trembled. "I'm not a bad person. I was just enforcing rules. HOA rules." The sheriff's eyes narrowed slightly. "The HOA already told me you're not even on the board." Karen's face dropped again. Now she looked truly afraid. The officers stepped beside the sheriff and waited for his next order. Even their posture had changed, more stiff, more official. They knew the situation was now serious. The sheriff lifted his phone again. "Everything you did today is recorded, ma'am." Karen's voice cracked. Can we delete it? Maybe we can just forget this?" "We're neighbors, right?" she said with a shaky fake smile. The sheriff didn't return the smile. "No, Karen. We don't forget crimes. We don't ignore lies. And we don't reward people who misuse 911. Karen took a tiny step backward, then another. Her back hit a mailbox. She jumped like it shocked her. The sheriff stepped closer, not threatening, just controlled. "Ma'am, you called the police on an innocent person, knowing it was a lie. You wasted emergency resources. And you tried to force your way into property that isn't yours." Karen's voice was barely a whisper now. "I was only trying to help." The sheriff shook his head. "You were only trying to control." Karen opened her mouth but couldn't speak. Her eyes darted left and right, looking for a way out, but there was none. Her entire act, her fake authority, her dramatic lies had fallen apart in seconds. Neighbors had slowly come outside. Some peeked from behind curtains. Some stood on porches. Everyone was watching. Whispers spread quietly. "That's Karen. She called 911 again? She messed with the wrong person this time." Karen heard them. The whispers stabbed her like tiny knives. Her whole face turned pale. The sheriff finally spoke the words that sealed her fate. "Ma'am, at this time you are being investigated for attempted vehicle tampering and filing a false police report." Karen gasped like she couldn't breathe. No. Please. I'm the victim here." One of the officers spoke kindly but firmly. "Ma'am, the video says otherwise." Karen pressed her shaking hands to her head. "I was only doing what I thought was right. Why won't anyone listen to me?" The sheriff answered softly but with full authority. "Because, Karen, this time, the whole truth is recorded." Karen stared at the ground. Her confidence was gone. Her HOA queen attitude had vanished. Now she just looked small. Embarrassed. Scared. The officers approached her slowly. She looked up at them with watery eyes. "Do you have anything else to say?" the sheriff asked. Karen whispered, I didn't think I would get caught." The sheriff nodded once. "And that," he replied, "is exactly why you did it." Karen finally realized her biggest mistake. She had picked the wrong car to mess with. The wrong person to challenge. The wrong story to fake. And now the consequences were standing right in front of her, badges shining, authority clear, and justice ready. The entire neighborhood watched in silence. And Karen's world continued to crumble. The street was silent, almost too quiet. Even the neighbors who had gathered didn't speak. They simply watched as Karen stood there shaking, embarrassed, and finally realizing the truth. She was no longer in control. Her Queen of the Neighborhood act was over. The sheriff looked at her calmly, his badge still visible. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't show anger. He didn't even show pride. He just looked disappointed. And for some reason, that disappointed look hurt Karen more than anything else. One of the officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need you to sit down while we finish the report." Karen didn't argue anymore. She slowly lowered herself onto the curb, her hands trembling. Her face was red and blotchy, but all her fake confidence had disappeared. For the first time in a long time, Karen was quiet. The sheriff walked a few steps away to review the video one more time with the officers. They spoke softly, taking notes, confirming details. Everything was clear. Karen had lied. Karen had misused 911. Karen had tried to break into a car. Karen had pretended to have power she never had. And now, every mistake she made was on record. The neighbors whispered again. "She finally got caught. I told you she wasn't part of the HOA. She messed with the wrong guy." Karen heard every whisper. She hugged her knees, trying to block out the world. After a moment, the Real HOA board members walked over. Two of them, holding clipboards, looking confused and embarrassed. The HOA president spoke first. "Sheriff, we just heard what happened. We want you to know we never gave Karen any authority. She is not on our board. She never was." The sheriff nodded. "I figured." "We're sorry for the trouble," the HOA president added. "We've had complaints about her for months. But this is new." Karen looked at them with betrayal in her eyes. "So you're turning against me too," she whispered. The HOA president sighed. "Karen, we tried to warn you many times. You don't have the right to control your neighbors." Karen lowered her head again. Now, the entire situation was clear, recorded, witnessed, confirmed. The sheriff walked back toward her. Karen looked up slowly, bracing herself for the worst. But his voice was surprisingly calm. Not soft, just steady. "Karen, I need you to listen carefully," he said. She nodded weakly. "You're not being arrested today," he said slowly. Karen gasped. Her shoulders dropped in shock and relief. "But," the sheriff continued, "you will face consequences." Her relief froze. He explained, "There will be a full investigation. You may receive fines. You may have to go to court. And the HOA will decide what happens next in the neighborhood." Karen swallowed hard. Why aren't you arresting me now?" she whispered. The sheriff looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered with something she did not expect. "Because I don't want to ruin your life. I want you to learn from this." Karen blinked. This was the first time anyone had shown her mercy. He continued, "You've been using fear to feel powerful. But real power doesn't come from controlling others. It comes from respecting them." Karen lowered her eyes. She could barely speak. I understand." The sheriff sighed softly. Do you? Because if you do, this is your last warning to change. Karen nodded fast, almost too fast. Yes. Yes, I will. I promise. For the first time ever, Karen wasn't shouting. Or demanding. Or acting like a ruler. She sounded human. The officers finished the paperwork. One of them approached Karen. Ma'am, you're free to go for now. But expect a follow-up. Karen stood up slowly, still shaking. She avoided the neighbor's eyes. She didn't speak to anyone. She simply walked home quietly, something nobody had seen her do before. As she disappeared behind her front door, the neighborhood slowly relaxed. The officers thanked the sheriff. He thanked them back. Neighbors approached him, shaking his hand, welcoming him properly this time. One of them joked. You sure know how to make an entrance to the neighborhood. The sheriff smiled lightly. Didn't plan it, but I'm glad it's settled. A gentle breeze moved through the street again, this time peaceful, not tense. The sheriff looked around at the quiet homes, the calm sidewalks, the evening sun returning warmth to the neighborhood. And with a small satisfied nod, he said softly to himself. Order restored. Then he added something meant not for the neighbors, but for the viewers. Remember, power is not about keys, titles, or loud voices. It's about honesty, respect, and doing what's right even when no one is watching. The story ended not with shouting, not with chaos, but with a calm truth. Karen fought for fake power, but the sheriff stood for real justice. And the neighborhood would never forget that day.